Your government pensions are at risk. Don't look at me. I'm just the bearer of bad news. This is from the Washington Post. Right here, Diffusing the Public Pension Time Bomb, written by a guy named Neil Pierce. Right there, Washington Post. You can see it, Diffusing the Public Pension Time Bomb. All right. Belatedly, in the nick of time, state and local governments are starting to diffuse the time bomb of widespread underfunded public pensions. The process is not going to be easy or cheap because there are decades of neglect, of poor pension fund management, of unconscionable concessions to privileged classes of government workers. Massachusetts, for instance, their solution is a 40-year plan that will require, after a 5-year phase-in to soften the blow, expending 26% of their state and local payrolls each year to cover the Bay State's huge $12.6 billion of unfunded pension liability. Woo! Officials of Boston and other hard-pressed localities worry whether they can afford the annual payments. But Carmen Elio, chairman of Massachusetts Retirement Law Commission and chief architect of the reform plan, warns that if pension plans aren't put on a sound basis, bankruptcy will be inevitable. I'm not saying that. That's what this guy's saying, Carmen Elio. The pension commitments many states and cities have made to their workers, especially when an employee can retire with more money than he was making on the job, amount to a capital punishment of the taxpayer, says Tennessee State Rep John Bragg. How dare you? Don't you know you got to change your last name? How dare you have a last name Bragg? Next thing you know, you're going to say your name's Benning. How dare you? Bragg reports that in 16 states, a school teacher who retires at 65 after 25 years of service will receive, combining pension and Social Security, an actual increase in his after-tax disposable income. A Philadelphia city worker who retires at 65 after 30 years on the job will draw 129% of his final take-home pay through the combination of city pension and Social Security, says pension expert Bernard jumped in. In Detroit, the comparable figure is 116, New York 127. There are some states and localities where employees are offered far less, but on average, according to this report from 20th Century Fund, pensions for local and state government workers are roughly double than the worker in the private industry can expect. Many state and local government retirees are protected by automatic cost of living adjustments, features virtually non-existent in the private industry pensions. Sloppy actuarial work and fund management by political cronies have compounded the problem. The net result is that unfunded pension liabilities, obligations beyond accrued retirement funds, are at an alarming levels from coast to coast. Example was from California, Illinois. All these are billions of dollars in the red. Eventually, taxpayers are going to have to pay these bills, plus the cost of the federal government's civil service and military benefits. An unfunded liability estimated as much as $700 billion. Massachusetts' breakthrough came after Elio's Retirement Law Commission created a computerized data bank of the state's 101 state and local pension systems. Right? In the past, everyone used to say, yes, pass a pension benefit today and worry about the cost tomorrow. But tomorrow is today now. The costs are here, and they just can't keep being passed on. Before the legislature accepted a new 40-year legislation funding plan, Elio campaigned across Massachusetts for a year, persuading taxpayers and public employees alone that without reform, the state's fiscal position would be dangerously weakened. All right. Delaware's legislature voted to limit new employees' total retirement benefits, including Social Security, 75% of final pay. New York began a reduced benefit for all new state and local government workers, which ties in Social Security benefits and which ties in Social Security benefits, and is expected to eventually reduce pension costs by some 20%. Reduced benefits generally only apply to new employees, but not workers already on legal theory enforced by courts that pension concessions once made are contracts the government can't break. But the Tennessee Supreme Court last year said that if paying full pensions ever threaten the state's fiscal ability or fiscal stability, the state could renege on its commitments. Interesting. With the pension and debt states and localities must pay off the next quarter century and some exceeding active payrolls, there's a distinct chance of default in paying pensioners unless reforms are made. Interesting. So what do you guys think about that, huh? Your old buddy Josh coming at you hot. We want to see something that's kind of funny about that article. You ready? It was written in 1977. 1977. August 27th, 1977. Has any pension not paid anything in terms of private and public sector? And I was 7 years old in 1977. I'm 53 now. That's 46 years ago. It's the same stuff. But check this out. This is crazy. One of the reasons the pensions were so bad. But the pensions, everyone had a pension. Did you hear what they said about the private sector pension? There's no COLA. And the private sector pension is much lower than the public sector pension. DC fire chief citing injury to retire. So this is in 1978. District of Columbia fire chief has asked the city for a tax-free disability retirement pension based on old back injury. He said that he will leave the department in March after 35 years of service. He doesn't want to disclose his injury publicly. The spokesman said he understood that a roof had fallen on Johnson during a fire when the chief was a rookie 35 years previously, but it could not be determined whether Johnson is saying that caused a back injury. When he was promoted, he passed a physical examination. If found eligible by a city retirement board, he would collect some $32,000 in tax-free pension money. Washington is unique among major cities that the great majority of police and firemen who retire do so on disability rather than on regular retirement. 82% of the 2,200 police retirees and 83% of the 1,000 retired firemen have gone on disability. The substantial difference is that retiree is that the disability is tax-free. Since World War II, every single fire chief has retired on disability, including a man forced from office, one who stayed on the force for 10 years after his injury, one who broke a wrist while tripping over a fire hose, and another who fell from a ladder while painting his house. Johnson was examined by a neurosurgeon and said he suffers from degenerated disc. Other physician not familiar with this case says that the condition was common among men of 60, the result of years of wear on disc. He's been on sick leave for 2 months and in early January visited the police and fire clinics to ask physicians there to write him up for disability. Doctors, though, were not able to find any disability. Serious injury. So they sent him to this guy, Dr. Cooney, the Looney Cooney, who of course wrote him up. Johnson has a pain that goes around that comes and goes, according to the spokesman. Among the leading contenders for the department to see him are one guy who's black, but the other sources and another guy who's white. Johnson was the city's first black chief. He was appointed in 1973 when the city had a white police officer. Some sources close to the city say a white chief and a black chief are the two forces politically prudent. Anyway, that's one second. Came across all this in this book right here, A History of Retirement by this guy, William Graebner. Just such a plethora of wonderful stuff because it was published in 1980, but it was written in 1978. And just so many, stock full of freaking stuff here that, notes and citations, I freaking love it. Anyway, so check this out. In the past, policemen passed over for promotion have simply gone on sick leave and retired on disability, even though they had no trouble passing promotional physical exams. Critics of the system say the large number of disability retirements are the result of police and fire clinic physicians and a retirement board that fails to sufficiently challenge applicants. Yep. How can you say a man does not have a backache or a headache, said one police physician. Applicants frequently are able to obtain outside consultants who use words like they probably, possibly in describing a patient's physical condition. Board members claim they are more discerning about how these subjective injuries, and they contend they're reversing the trend toward disability. In the year 1970, 97% of all DC police and fire retirees went out on disability. 97%. Well, last year that fell to just 60%. When this guy was chief, he was concerned about the legitimacy of some of the retirees, instituted a special unit in the Internal Affairs Division to monitor retirees. They found a supposedly number of supposedly disabled men doing manual labor. In addition, 2 officers from the Internal Affairs Division have recently appointed 2 top positions at the clinic, and they reportedly argue with some men on the extended sick leave that they do not have a case for retirement board. Yeah, man, it's crazy. The Washington Post reported that both Cullinane and Johnson would be retiring early this year, and they'd be filling those Okay, whatever. But 97% of both the police and fire went out on disability. But yet they passed physicals. They found some doing construction work. Others just went to other jobs. Anyway, I remember when I was in the Army and I got out and everyone was like, "Oh, make sure you file a disability claim." I said, "Why?" I said, "Well, just in case. Why you want to make?" And I was like, "I'm not disabled. I'm fine. I just want to get the hell out of Dodge." Said, "You're gonna ruin it. You're gonna regret it." How many people file disability claims from the military? It's tax free with the cost of living adjustment. Now, it doesn't go to your spouse, so there's no survivor benefit. But I mean, how many people abuse that system, dude? 100%. And I mean, it's just this endemic. Is that the right word? Yeah, endemic. I mean, who's going to say, like that guy said, who's going to tell you don't have a headache? But if you broke your leg or whatever, painting a freaking house, how the hell do you get disability for the rest of your life if it's not military or work related? That's crazy. Actually, it's funny because we know a guy who's a dentist. That's why you better look at unemployment insurance, especially for self-employed. He's probably 60, something like that, but he's getting like shaky hands, or something, not vertigo, but shaky hands, and he's got to retire. He can't do it anymore. And I just like, I hope he's got unemployment or a disability, because that's, you get like that. Or, some of these dental hygienists, man, their backs hurt because they're always just, going over, bending over backwards, bending over whatever for the patients, operating on people's choppers. It's crazy. Anyway, disability insurance is a good thing, but you shouldn't be abusing the system, dude. I had a friend, he's a friend, I consider that, but he got messed up bad on our deployment to Fort Gordon. I'm sure we can't call it Fort Gordon anymore either. We'll call it Fort Obama, you know what I'm saying? So he got deployed, he got hurt going to Fort Obama. A big guy actually body slammed him. They're just wrestling around and did something to his back, and he used to always walk like this. It was crazy because he was a good guy. He was my basic training, but he'd always kind of walk like this forever. And he wasn't a shrinking violet by any stretch of the imagination, but after that he just couldn't walk. It was his broke dick is what it was called. He hated it. I mean, he didn't like it. He's like, I just got to serve my time until I get out of here because they're not gonna medically discharge me. But he goes, I can't, and he couldn't do it. And this guy was, during basic training and whatnot, he was a tough guy. I mean, he was a nice guy, but he wasn't. So it wasn't like he just did it. He was hurt, man, and he should have got military disability. I'm sure he got something, I hope, but they wouldn't send him, military discharge, medical discharge. They said you still got to serve your commitment. And we had just got to our unit when we deployed to Fort Gordon. That was in May of '89, and so we'd only been to our unit for 3 months, and so we still had another 3 years left to serve. And he was just, basically an armor. He'd help with the firearms and help with the quartermaster and stuff. I felt bad for the guy, man. Anyway, and he deserved to have your freaking comp, man. 100%. But I'm sorry, if you hurt yourself painting your house, why should the taxpayer cover that? That's the wrong answer. Anyway, the point of the whole thing about this, we've heard all these horror stories before. The boy who cries wolf, I'm just like, look, man, at the end of the day, this stuff could happen. I grant you. Will it? No, not in our lifetime. I mean, it could, but why get all worked up about it, man? These stories, they just regurgitate the same stuff. I've done stuff, retirement crisis, going back to the 1920s and 30s, too much debt. I mean, anyway. I mean, if you want to be fearful and, oh my goodness, and this time it's going to happen, kind of like global warming, this time, go ahead. It's just, I got no empathy for you. You're bringing that on yourself, and it's not worth doing. All right, love to your thoughts. We'll see you.